welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. It's going to be an honor. I know it will be.
That's very
Good
sweet
stuff.
No, I need to tell you before we even start the whole question situation. I want to honor you for talking about this subject because this is a topic that people do not like. Because this is a topic that people do not like to talk about. It's uncomfortable. It's something that's out of control. It's not a convenient topic. And, to be honest, it's a conversation I don't like to have, even though I'm an advocate, because it is so uncomfortable. But it's something that desperately needs sunlight. And so I just want to thank you so much for talking about it and tackling this issue. And I really think that this episode is going to change people's hearts, minds, and a lot of children's lives. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I hope it does. This is kind of turned into my specialty for whatever reason. So,
yeah.
No, honestly, kids is what I'm most passionate about.
Same.
Was veterans, then it was politics, then it was a bunch of other stuff. And then after sifting through the fucked up world that we live in,
it's unbelievable.
Kids, man. It's kids. It's sex exploitation, trafficking. And I was having a conversation with my wife, I don't know, maybe a year ago, 6 months to a year ago. And this really is my passion. I mean, I kind of blew the doors off with this, who's now my best friend, Ryan Montgomery. And ever since then, I've kind of been on a path and talked to Tim Tebow and a lot of people that are really involved in this, yourself. And my wife said, man, if you really want to get into the dark stuff, look at the foster care system.
Yep.
And our mutual friend, Kathy, actually randomly brought you up about this. And I was like, holy shit, my wife was just talking about this. So I know it's dark. I don't know how dark. I started looking into it a little bit, and maybe the darkest thing that we'll cover, depending on how in depth you go. We're definitely going to start a conversation here, though.
Yep. It's really dark.
I'm pretty scared.
The audience should buckle up.
Yeah. It's the kids that nobody wanted, and people take advantage of that. And it's fucking sad. But anyways, before we get too dark, let me give you an introduction here. So, Jen Lilly, you built a successful career as an actress and singer spanning more than 2 decades with roles on Days of Our Lives, General Hospital, and numerous films on the Hallmark Channel. Behind the scenes, you and your husband opened your home to children in foster care, eventually fostering multiple children and adopting through the foster system. Through that journey, you've witnessed the realities faced by vulnerable children, foster families, and the system meant to support them. What started as advocacy quickly grew into a renewed calling to fight harder for those who often don't have a voice. You recently co-authored Called to Foster, an honest guide to getting started, helping prospective foster parents better understand the realities of the journey. That's awesome that you're doing that. And so before we get too far into this, everybody gets a gift.
Oh.
Vigilance League gummy bears, made in the USA.
Amazing.
Legal in all 50 states. And
I love it.
Yeah, just a little thing for the flight home.
Thanks.
And then we have a Patreon account, which is a subscription account. We've turned it into quite the community. So they get the opportunity to ask every single guest a question. Because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them.
That's right.
So this is from Eric Alger.
Okay.
You've worked in Hollywood for decades and have also been deeply involved in foster care and adoption. Which institution do you think is doing more damage to America's children right now? The entertainment industry, the education system, or the foster care system? And what is one hard truth Americans don't want to hear about it?
Shoo. This guy's name is Eric.
Yeah.
Eric, you're awesome. Great question. Without a doubt. I mean, I don't even think Hollywood and the education system and the problems that they have, they're dipping their toe in the pool. Foster care is the deep end. It is so dark. And the darkest issue of foster care that nobody wants to talk about is how it's a pipeline for human trafficking.
Man, I was just, what do you do? Like, I was just talking to my editors in the editing room when we were checking the camera angles, and I brought up an experience But I mean, I think a lot of people have this experience. What do you do if you have that gut feeling that foster kids are being fucking abused, but there's no evidence? It's just a gut feeling.
Listen.
Because you know what's happening.
Oh,
you know. See it, and it's just like, what do? You
get involved. I mean,
how do you get involved?
You get involved. Well, the biggest way, obviously, to get involved is become a foster parent. And it's not as hard as people think it is. It's actually, there's a situation, not to go deep really fast, but there's a situation going on right now. It's like a big buzz that's going on in foster care. Alex Adams over at Health and Human Services, he's the head of the child welfare, basically on the federal level. He has started a new campaign called A Home for Every Child. And, here's the thing. It doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic background is. It doesn't matter what your politics are. Most people, the overwhelming majority of people, would agree that you don't mess with kids. Most people want the well-being of children. Most people believe that children deserve to have autonomy over their body and not be sexually violated. Most people agree that children should not be brutally abused. They should be fed. They should be bathed. They should be well cared for. I don't care what your politics are. That's true. So when Alex Adams comes up with a, slogan or a campaign called A Home for Every Child, the political optics is amazing. You know what I mean? Like, that sounds great. And I'm not accusing Alex Adams of anything. I've never talked to him. I don't know his intentions. I think that a lot of people have really good intentions, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. A Home for Every Child, what Alex Adams and the HHS is doing on a federal level right now with this campaign is they are lowering the standards of what it takes to become a licensed foster parent. And when you lower the standards and make it easier to become a foster parent, you're going to recruit all the wrong people. Mm-hmm. I think the idea was we are in a crisis like we've never seen before in this nation with a lack of foster homes. We've lost 36,000 foster homes since 2018. And I'm sure at some point we will get into all the whys behind that. But if you're basically hemorrhaging out foster homes, and you're like, we desperately need more people to foster. How can we get more people to foster? Oh, I know. We'll just make it easier to foster. No. If people know anything about foster care, and there's a lot of myths and misconceptions surrounding foster care, but one thing that's not a myth is that foster care is a hellhole. Not every home is like my home. There are wonderful people that foster, yes. Some of my best friends, people that I think are rock stars, and I cry when I'm around them because their heart is so beautiful. They foster. The co-author of my book, Dr. John DeGarmo, that man is a saint. There are many really good people that foster. But this is like in my mind, it's not a statistic that I've heard, but like I almost would wager that like half are good. If actually I want to break it up and statistically in my mind, what does Joan Lily's mind think? I'd say 30 to 40% is really good. Homes like my home, they really care. They got involved for the right reasons. Maybe 30% if it's good, 30 is good, 30% kind of okay. They're not really abusing the kids, but they're just like okay people that like got involved and like they're jaded and they don't really care. They're not like sexually trafficking the kids. They're just okay. And then I would say maybe 40% are awful. Hellholes. And so these people, if you lower the standards of what it takes to become a foster parent, you're just going to recruit more of the bad. Make it hard. Make it hard to foster.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, that's one thing that I've been trying to get people to understand when I do these interviews. Like we did I can't remember if the last big one was Elizabeth Phillips with Cook, the big Christian camp.
Okay.
I don't know if you know about that.
I don't know about it.
What atrocious. Lots and lots and lots and lots of sexual abuse. And then they would NDA these kids so they can't ever talk about it. And so Elizabeth Phillips is going around, that's her new mission. Her brother killed himself because of it. So she's pushing legislation for this law. They're calling it Trey's Law, where the kids can't be held accountable.
Yeah.
NDAs don't matter.
How can an NDA even be possible if you're under 18?
It's fucking ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. That's crazy.
And then Cook tried to get me for defamation. And
well, it's not defamation if it's true.
But we've done that. I had my friend Schlepp on and uncovered all the shit that's going on Roblox, and had Ryan Montgomery
Yes.
on about 764 cult, and then just in general sex exploitation and how they lure kids off the internet, and
Yes.
Tim Tebow, and and so every time I do one of these, the audience, they're infuriated with the institution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether that's a church or a gaming conglomerate or whatever it is, but and they're right. They should be, because a lot of these, they cover it up. Kanakuk, they try to cover it up,
Right.
and they didn't even hold the people that were doing the abuse accountable. They covered for them. They're like, oh, well, we reprimanded them and told them that it's inappropriate to be playing naked basketball with kids. And
Oh,
it's
my God. And this was a Christian camp?
This is the biggest Christian camp in the country. I'm pretty sure we destroyed it. But that's not the point. The point is, that all the attention goes to the institution. But
Yes.
just like what you're saying, if you ease the restrictions on fostering a kid, then it's a fucking magnet for pedophiles. It's a magnet for pedophiles.
We're going to get into it so deep.
and
Jesus.
and so and these are people that are it's not like a demographic, like a lot of crime you can put on a demographic of people.
Yep.
This is everybody. It's the rich, it's the poor, it's black, it's white, it's every country. We're the number one country that consumes.
Yes, this is how I became a child advocate.
And,
Finding that out. Yeah.
And so like the United States is a cesspool for this shit.
It's
like
so bad.
It's
we
a
are
cesspool
so bad
for this.
Yes.
And so what I'm saying is these people, they don't look like scumbags.
Mm-mm.
They don't even, you think that guy looks, you don't know, man.
Nope.
You don't know. This is everybody.
Yep.
Of every color, every race, every
Economic
financial
profile.
situation.
Yep.
Yeah. Economic profile. And they just flow to the next thing. You know what I mean? And so it's all great. Cool. We took Kanakuk down. Yeah. Maybe we got a couple of pedophiles uncovered out of it, but the majority of them are just going to flow to the next camp.
Exactly.
And it's what the parents are going to do. They're going to just be like, oh, that institution's bad. Well, I'll put my kids in this one. Dude, these fuckers are everywhere. They are
Just like, how did the other counselors not? How does everybody become complicit to that? You know what I mean? I guess because their life is threatened, but I don't know. For me, I'm like, if there's one thing I'd be willing to get canceled, if that's even a thing, over, if there's one thing I'd be willing to like lay it all on the line, give my career up for outside of my faith, it's children who are being abused.
Yeah. I don't even give a shit anymore. They can pull my platform.
That's what I'm saying. So, like literally, I'll go live off a grid, like, great, thank you.
But I think before we dive into it, I think people just need to get that this isn't just an institution that's covering, trying to protect itself. It's all the people inside of it that are going to flow into the next thing. And there's millions of these people in the U.S. alone. And so, I was even thinking, I was talking to my wife, because this is the thing that I'm most passionate about. Yeah. So me and Ryan Montgomery and I are going to develop an application for parents to help protect their kids from the shit that's going online. But then diving into this, I'm like, man, I was talking to my wife. I was like, maybe we're not there yet, but maybe eventually, if things continue to go the way they're going in my life, maybe we open a foster care home.
Yeah.
But then I started thinking, I'm like, how the fuck do you staff it? How do you trust? You could have the most pure heart in the world and open one of these, but how do you find the right people to staff it?
Yeah.
What if you hire a fucking abuser?
I mean, I know, but yeah, I got people you can talk to that will tell you exactly how they do it. It's like, I don't have the answer for that question, but I know who does.
You grew up, your parents were fostering kids.
Sort of, not exactly. So it's like sort of. My parents, so my dad was a judge, and my mom was one of the directors. She worked at a crisis pregnancy center. So there's a thing in foster care where it's hard to do, but you're supposed to, as a foster parent, remain unbiased. Because one of the myths and misconceptions. So one of the myths and misconceptions of foster care is that, people are like, oh, so are you going to adopt? And it's like, no. The goal of foster care is not adoption. The goal of foster care is to reunite the child with their biological caretaker. So mom, dad, whoever they left, their family, you want to put the families back together. So foster care is basically, let's take this child out of this abusive or neglectful situation. And by the way, it's a myth and misconception. I believe that people are taking their kids out of, abusive or neglectful homes willy-nilly. Like, I don't think social workers are just trying to take kids out of homes. We have far too short. There's a huge shortage of foster homes. In fact, yeah, I'll just go into it right now. In fact, it's gotten so bad in foster care that in 13 states right now, children with no criminal record are being put into detention home centers because there's no room for them.
Holy shit.
There's something in foster care called stopgap, which is basically, I don't know if it happens in other arenas, but it happens in foster care. It's called stopgap. That's a fancy way of saying, basically, we know that this situation is so terrible for this child. I really sympathize with social workers. Are there bad social workers? I'm sure there are, but I think that a lot of social workers are just overworked and underpaid. And I think that they have to make really hard decisions to remove the child from this situation because they know they don't have anywhere to put them, which is why my whole mission is like, I've just got to recruit better foster parents. So if a social worker is going into a home where the abuse or neglect is so severe that that child needs to be removed from the home, that social worker, it has to be pretty bad for that social worker to be like, okay, I have nowhere for you to go, but here are your options. And this is going on across every state that I know of.
Oh.
Stopgap placement. The child will either sleep in a shelter until they find a placement. The child will sleep, no joke, in the social worker's office until they find a placement. They will put them in hotels until they find a placement, which I don't know this for a fact, but I imagine trafficking could happen there. Or in 13 states, like I said, they will just put them in detention centers. And by the way, when the child with no criminal record is put in a detention center,
Now they have a record.
they not only have a record, but they're treated as prisoners. There's not like a label on the kids that's like, hey, by the way, this is a child that's like being placed in foster care and they're just here as an emergency placement. We have no room for them. No, they're put in a jumpsuit. And like backing up from it, and I'll get back to like my parents. We'll get back out of this hole. But imagine a child who, the biggest myth and misconception of foster care, and I don't blame people for thinking this. My husband used to think this. My husband's amazing, obviously. Listen, I'm a lot to wrangle. The man's a saint. But 51% of surveyed Americans wrongfully assume that children in foster care are bad kids. That's probably the biggest myth and misconception. Children who are in foster care were put into a system that's terribly broken. They never asked to be there. And they were removed because of someone else's choices. Because their caretaker or their biological mom, dad, grandparent, whoever's taking care of them, abused them so severely or neglected them so severely, the Child Protective Services had to step in. Now imagine being that child. This is what happens all across the nation in all 50 states. Child Protective Services gets called, and if the welfare worker decides that, yes, the situation is so dire that the kid needs to be moved right here and right now, if the child is considered lucky, they are given a trash bag. This is real. They are given a trash bag, and they are basically said, you have 5 minutes to put anything you want, like to bring with you.
Serious?
Yes. There's a whole organization called Comfort Cases. I'm very close with them. That's their whole mission. Rob Shearer, who's the founder of Comfort Cases, he's amazing. He grew up in foster care, and he always had trash bags. And so when he and his husband started fostering, a child showed up at their house with a trash bag, and he was like, I can't believe this is still happening. So he started this amazing organization called the Comfort Cases, where they basically give them a duffel bag, a journal, stuffy, clean pajamas, like all these toiletries, all the things a child would need. Imagine being a child who all of a sudden child welfare comes in. And what people don't understand is that if a child only knows abuse or neglect, as hard as it is to wrap our minds around this, that child still loves their mom or dad. They don't know many times this is not normal behavior. Even kids who are sexually abused, many of them, they don't know. They don't know this isn't normal. They don't know.
It's normal to them.
It's normal to them. So a social worker comes in, and then if they're lucky, they get a trash bag to collect their things, their teddy bear, any piece of home. Nobody tells them why they're being removed. They get put in a car and driven to a stranger's house. And I think about this all the time, like, what must go through their mind? Like, am I a bad kid? They don't know if it's their mom's fault, their dad's fault. Like, they don't know if it's their fault. And then they're going to go to a stranger's house and be told, like, these are your new parents. And it's like, you know, do they like me? Like, a lot of them have shame automatically of like what I have done. And then I'm thinking, you're telling me that right now in 13 states, and I don't know the states because the report is very elusive. I used a lot of AI to kind of do, like, I looked at the entire report, like reading the report. It is a bipartisan. There's a representative. I don't know whether it's Congress or senator. There's a representative. I think it's Ossoff out of Georgia, and a representative out of Virginia. I think it's Hagan or Kagan, something like that, that are working on this. But even in their bipartisan report, because they've uncovered that this is happening in 13 states, the report doesn't exactly say which 13 states this is happening in. This is something I'm like currently researching. AI is like, we can probably tell you what 4 of the states are with a lot of certainty, but we don't know the other 9. Imagine being that child. You're in the social worker's car. Nobody's told you why you're being removed. If you even have a trash bag, maybe, you might not. And then you're dropped off at a detention home center. Of course you're going to think, this is my fault. I've done something. And no one explains to you why this is happening. Foster care is so jacked up. It is so jacked up. And I will tell you that it is proven time and time and time again that kids in foster care are 2 times more likely to suffer from PTSD than combat veterans.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my parents, going back up out of the rabbit hole, there's a thing in foster care we have to remain unbiased, which means I can't basically get too attached to the kid and want to adopt them. I need to be unbiased and try to be pro reunification. Listen, another misconception that I hear all the time is that people will be like, oh, it's so sweet that you're a foster parent. Like, I could never do that. I would get too attached. That statement makes me want to cuss. I won't, because my fans would be very upset. But you can cuss for me, Shawn. But it makes me want to cuss because it's like, listen, if you don't think you could foster because you would get too attached, then you are the perfect person to foster, because these kids need your attachment more than you need to protect your heart. You know? That's
like the people they can't watch the Tim Tebow interview because
it's too painful.
They can't see it.
It's too painful.
It's like, well, you're not the one fucking living it.
Right. Like, oh, you can't even watch it. So again, huge props to you for tackling this, and huge props to your audience for watching this interview, because this is a seriously dark issue. But basically, because my dad was a judge, my mom worked at a crisis pregnancy center, they were kind of concerned that things could be said where maybe they had bias. Maybe they used their influence in order to sway a certain case. And because my parents are like very by the books.
What do you mean sway a case? What does that mean?
Well, my dad's a judge.
Sway the kid? The stain?
No. So there's a case that's opened once a child enters foster care. Now there's a court case that will determine that child's permanency plan. Are they going back home? Are they staying with the foster parent? Are they going to be eligible for adoption? There's a case that's opened, a court case that's opened against the parent.
Okay.
And so if my dad's a judge in particular, and the child who's in our house was adopted, technically somebody could accuse my dad of pulling strings.
Gotcha.
Swaying the case toward adoption. So my parents never became licensed foster parents, but there were often people living in our house who weren't related to us. And so I had many times, it wasn't ongoing, but I had many times throughout my childhood where someone who was not biologically related to me was staying at our house. And so that for me planted a lot of seeds of empathy. They made me interested in foster care from a young age, but my husband didn't want to do it. So,
I mean, how would they integrate in?
How would the child integrate in? Sometimes the parent was also staying with them. So it'd be like a family that just needed transition in life. So the parent would stay, right? And they're, staying with us. But there was one, I called her my foster sister. That's kind of what my parents just set the expectation of, this person's going to be living with us and we're going to treat them like our family. And, it was a teenager. One time we had a teenager living with us and I thought she was so cool. So it was like, I finally have an older sister, So it was like, I was just raised to, I'd be like, that's my sister. Like I told everybody, so I think it depends on like how your parents raise you. My kids know that my kids like desperately want to foster again, but I have 4 under 10 and I'm like, listen, the youngest just turned 4 last month. Like Jackie's got to get into kindergarten before I tackle this again. Like I'm exhausted. I feel like I'm failing you guys at all times. Like, I don't know why you think I can handle more kids. My kids are set on having 6. And I'm like, all right, listen, I told them the other day, I said, once Jackie's in kindergarten, we'll talk about like fostering somebody who's in an elementary school. But by the way, I love to put the fear of God in my kids. Like, yes, I'm nice, but I'm also like militant. I was like, if that child happens to go to your elementary school, you will never tease them. You will stick up for them. Like, if I ever hear that you tell the other kids that they're a foster kid, I will take every toy you have ever owned. Like, I will treat you like a criminal. Like, so I think it depends on like the person that raises them.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like, I don't know. My parents are just like normal. It's like, we're going to help them because that's part of my faith.
I mean, what is it like for them coming in? You
For
know,
the child?
for your growing up with that. You know, I mean, I've read that it was kind of a revolving door at your house as a child.
Sure. What was it like for the child who was basically in transition and living with us temporarily, or me, the child?
Yeah, I mean, I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah.
Like, they show up, then what? Is it awkward? I mean, it's got to be a little awkward.
You know, I don't know because
Especially if they're coming from a lot of abuse.
I think
Especially if they're coming from house to house to house to house.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife was talking to a mutual friend of ours.
Yeah.
And he's really good friends with somebody that's made it out and is doing really well.
Right.
Appears to be doing really well.
Yeah.
And she had mentioned something that she went to a house and they were trying to rape her.
Yeah.
Over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in the foster care system, you have like a, what would I call this? Like a big sister, like a mentor, or
If you're lucky.
if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And so she reached out and said, hey, this is happening. How do I deal with it? And the answer was just, yeah, it's just something you're going to have to go through.
It's like I lean forward and act like I'm surprised, but I'm not really surprised. I mean, that's so jacked up. It's not a unique story. We hear that all the time at Tulsa Girls Home. I mean, yeah, I could tell you stories that make your toes curl. What was it like for that child? You know, I can't say what it was like. I mean, but I can say from friends that I have who have fostered while they've had their own children, or who have fostered older children who might be cognizant of that whole process. I think it's hard for them. I think they don't have expectations. I mean, right before the pandemic, we didn't officially foster because she was aging out of the system, but there was a girl that was aging out of the system and she had a terrible foster mom. Terrible, I would say she's in the second set of 30%. She's not like raping her, but she's a crappy foster parent. She's making her pay rent. She's like, the day your check dries up, you know, you're out of my house kind of situation. And my husband and I were at this luncheon. There's this amazing organization called Olive Crest. And I don't know whether Olive Crest is national, but I know there's a lot in California. And they're a Christian organization. And in Los Angeles, every single year, they have a foster care luncheon. It's like a summit where they call the 300 churches in LA, 300 Christian churches in LA. And they're like, we want to talk to you about the state of foster care. It's awesome. Like, call the church to the mat. Because, by the way, foster care is a thing because the church closed her doors and assumed that the government would make a good parent. The government makes a terrible parent. Anyway, this girl, she's on this panel, and the panel is really awesome that they do this. There's this panel. It has a current foster parent. It had a parent who lost their child who ended up reunifying with their child. So they talked about their experience. The foster parent talks about their experience. Maybe a social worker. I don't remember who the third person was. And then this girl who was about to turn 18 and age out of foster care. And the question was asked, how has the church played a role in your life? And they passed this teenage girl the microphone first. And I think anyone could probably deduce what she was thinking about in her mind. But because I'm an actor, I was just like, it was almost like I could just read like thoughts going through her head. And she's just like, and you can tell that she's like, be a good girl. Don't say the wrong thing. Don't insult these people. I'm at like a church summit, you know. And it was so awesome because I will tell you one thing. You want to meet a real Christian, go to Los Angeles. California Christians do not mess around. They are my favorite people in the whole wide world because it's like, oh, you actually like, you put your money where your mouth is, or put your mouth where your money is, or whatever, you know, however that saying works. Like, they walk the walk. Why? Because it's not cool to be there. I grew up in the Bible Belt. I can say this. There's a lot of amazing Christians who live in the Bible Belt. There's a lot of also what I would call spiritually gluttonous people that say they believe this and they do not do anything about it. They're just taking it in. They're the bless me, bless me, bless me, because they don't want to be inconvenienced. They don't want to be out of control, and they don't want to do anything that's not comfortable. And to those people, I would say, look at yourself very closely, because, and I'm just speaking to Christians, and by the way, people can foster. There are wonderful people who are not Christians. But if I'm addressing the church who like needs to tackle foster care and needs to get involved and stop being so complacent, here's the thing. What did Jesus say? If you want to be my disciple, deny yourself, take up your cross daily, and follow me. That's the only way you'll be my disciple. So we don't deny ourselves. We self-love, we comfort, we soothe, we want to look away, we want to have uncomfortable conversations, we don't want to look toward brokenness. But if you look at Jesus, he always ran towards brokenness. He didn't disqualify Mary Magdalene from being like his number one girl because what? Because she was a prostitute? No, he set her free, he loved her. Mm-hmm. Like Jesus ran toward brokenness. So this girl was like stumbling on the stage, and so it was so awesome because LA, different breed. All of a sudden, these like pastors and representatives, my husband and I are representing our church, we're not pastors, but they were like, yeah, go ahead, you guys are really passionate about this. They start standing up and they're yelling at the stage. They're like, come on, call us to the mat. Tell us what we could do better. Like, don't sugarcoat it for us. And I'm like, these are my people. You know what I mean? Like, yes, give it to me hard. Like, don't sugarcoat this for me. You tell me, how has the church played a role in your story? And so finally she bucks up the courage and she goes, I don't actually think I've had a positive interaction with a Christian my entire life. And I am, if you can't already tell, in my relationship with my husband, I am like the gas pedal, but I am like mashing the accelerator. I'm like, let's go all the time. My husband is not just a brake. He's like the e-brake. He doesn't want to do anything. He's like a homebody. Like, we're totally different. We balance each other because I'm super crazy. I know. And I'm thinking, oh God, I want to help her so bad, but my husband's never going to go for it. And he just looks at me and he's got like tears in his eyes and he goes, we have to help her. And I was like, great. So we talked to our social worker. We asked them questions. I went up to them and I was like, do not tell her that we are even considering this because I do not want to crush her. But I got to meet with you privately and I got to ask some questions. So I had to ask, like, has she ever molested another child? Because these are things that, like, again, it's not that the kid is bad. Like, sometimes they're not taught this is an inappropriate behavior. It's so jacked up. And they're like, no, she doesn't. Because I'm like, my husband worked night shift. I have 3 kids under 3. Like, I can't do this if that's the case. And so she came to live with us and the pandemic happened. But I asked her when she moved in, I was like, look, she was 18. I was, however old I was, 35. She's taller than me. You know, like I'm like this short little white girl and she's this tall, beautiful black girl. And I was like, how do you want this to work? Like, do you want like me to be like your foster mom or like your friend or like your mentor? Like, what's our relationship here? And she was like, I just need to know what rules you have. And I was like, okay, the only rules I have in my house for you, because like, I know she's had sex, you know? And I don't know like all of her background, but I was just like, no sex in my house. You're going to have sex. You go to your boyfriend's house. And you have to let me know you don't have a curfew. Like you were 18 years old and you've lived a lot of life. I do need to know where you are because I will be worrying myself sick. So like you don't have a curfew, but I need to know where you are and I also need to make sure so that like the door is locked and things for my other kids. And my only other rule is like just be a good human. If the trash is full and you're leaving for work and like you have a second, take the trash out. Like when you're done with your dish, if you have a second and you're not like in a rush, if you're in a rush, put it in the sink. If you're not in a rush, like just load it into the dishwasher. Other than that, like, I don't really have any rules. You have any questions for me? So I think it depends on, like, they want to know the boundaries. Every child wants to know boundaries. But I really think it comes down to, like, who's fostering them and what's the expectation that they come up with. And a lot of kids who enter into foster homes, a phenomenon that happens that I don't blame these kids for is like they call it, like, the honeymoon period. So they get in there and they're on their best behavior because they're trying to measure you. They're trying to figure out, like, are you going to hurt me as well? You know, what's this placement going to be like? They're on their best behavior while they're trying to take your temperature. And then many of them, if you're a stable home, they will act out really hard. And they teach you this if they're good, if you have a good training before foster parenting. You're supposed to, in order to get licensed, you have to take like, it varies state to state. It varies county to county. It's one of the things that's hardest about foster care. Is that you have federal law, you have state law, all 50 states have different laws. You have agency policies, you have county law, and then you have judicial decisions that like weigh into how the law is interpreted and what they want for this particular child. So it's really complicated no matter where you get. But so a child, and back to the point, the child will start acting out like crazy if you are a good foster home many times, because they call it